Today I spoke with one of the most insufferable, snobbish, pretentious arses I've ever met in my entire life, and who just so happens to be the owner of one of my favourite pubs. I'd spoken with him once before, but on that occasion he talked a mercifully short while. This time there was to be no mercy. Without so much as an excuse me or a sorry to bother you, Richard, not his real name, but the short version of Richard is appropriate, sat down at my table in the sun and asked what I did for a living. I should add that Dick is in his 60s and invariably wears designer cashmere jumpers the colour of regurgitated salmon. At any rate, I replied that I worked on barges, and Dick, despite not knowing the first thing about me other than the fact that I am frequently to be seen writing, did what all Dicks do and proceeded to spout utter shite. Among his nuggets of wisdom were, how does it feel, a sensitive soul like yourself, to work among people of low IQ? I said that I did not think my IQ was any higher than that of my fellow bargees. Of course, what I wish I'd said is that a paintbrush has more grey matter than he or any of his horrifying progeny will ever have, but then I'd be as stupid as Dick is in imagining that IQ does or should matter. Dick then revealed that he had studied philosophy. This surprised me, as he could name only two philosophers, both of whose names he mispronounced, and neither of whose theories he could explain. So Dick went on, flitting from subject to subject, claiming expertise here and genius there. At one point he proclaimed that he was a scientist, and that science had disproved both philosophy and religion. I somehow didn't have the guts to say that science as we know it was the product of the Christian mind. Maybe I should have. It was Good Friday, after all. Dick is the quintessential midwit, with the added disadvantage of having, at least in my case, to be endured in person rather than online. Of course, what makes a midwit is not simply medium intelligence, or indeed a preoccupation with IQ, but a habit of broadcasting the fact with unasked for and unremarkable opinions that go far beyond any expertise one could possibly have. Many journalists fit this description, but they at least have the excuse of being paid to hang out their dirty intellectual laundry in public. Midwits, lacking all humility, just can't seem to resist. To my mind, however, the very worst thing about midwits is their snobbery. In that department, I dare say Dick reigns supreme. It never occurred to him that an intelligent person might choose otherwise than university. It never occurred to him that a carpenter, plumber, chef, builder, shopkeeper, cleaner, nurse, shelf stacker, or anyone else upon whom Dick actually depends to stay alive might read books, or have an interesting take on the energy crisis, or write poetry now and then. But the thing is, even if they didn't do these things, even if their job really was the limit of their thoughts and feelings, why should this matter? People like Dick are stupid enough to think intelligence, or as they say, book learning, is and ought to be the criterion of any judgment, and especially any political judgment, worth respecting. It wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if Dick had voted Remain in the Brexit referendum. I'm not saying there wasn't a case for Remain. There was. A bad one, to be sure, but a case nonetheless. Yet the Remain faction wasted no time in pinning the vote to leave on those pesky working-class white van men who had had the temerity to defy the Remainers' university-endowed book learning. If I hadn't made this clear already, I hate the Dicks of this world. I really do. They leave me feeling physically nauseated. And that's coming from me, a conservative who thinks the pursuit of equality is a dead end, and who would gladly kneel for His Majesty King Charles III. I'm interested in another kind of equality, for there is neither Jew nor Greek, and so on and so forth. Particularly apt on Easter, I should think. Well, there is a world of difference between the elitist and the snob. The elitist delights in excellence, even when it is not his own. The snob delights only in his own excellence, which is really mediocrity.